Alright, gonna do what I intended. Two Views of Communication, Transmission and Ritual by James Carey. Political Discourse, Theories of Colonialism and Post-Colonialism. Communication is Culture, Essays on Media and Society, Boston, Unwin Hyman, 1985. The Transmission View. Two alternative concepts of communication have been alive in American culture since the term entered common discourse in the 19th century. Both definitions derive, as with much in secular culture, from religious origins, though they refer to somewhat different regions of religious experience. We might label these descriptions, I only provide handy pegs upon to hang our thought, a transmission view of communication and a ritual view of communication. The transmission view of communication is the highest frequency in our culture, perhaps in all industrial cultures, and dominates contemporary dictionary entries under the term. It is defined by terms such as imparting, sending, transmitting, or giving information to others. It is formed from a metaphor of geography or transportation. In the 19th century, but to a lesser extent today, the movement of goods or people and the movement of information were seen as essentially identical processes, and both were described by the common noun communication. The center of this idea of communication is the transmission of signals or messages over distance for the purpose of control. It is a view of communication that derives from one of the most ancient of human dreams, the desire to increase the speed and effect of messages as they travel in space. I said this view originated in religion, though the foregoing sentences seem more indebted to politics, economics, and technology. Nonetheless, the roots of the transmission view of communication, in our culture at least, lie in essentially religious attitudes. Communication was viewed as a process and a technology that would sometimes be used for religious purposes, to spread, transmit, and disseminate knowledge, ideas, and information farther and faster, with the goal of controlling space and people. The ritual view. A ritual view of communication is directed not towards extension of messages in space, but towards the maintenance of society in time. Not the act of imparting information, but the representation of shared beliefs. If the archetypical case of communication under transmission view is the extension of messages across geography for purpose of control, the archetypical case under a ritual view is the sacred ceremony that draws persons together in fellowship and commonality. The indebtedness of the ritual view of communication to religion is apparent in the name chosen to label it. Furthermore, it derives from a view of religion that downplays the role of the sermon, the instruction and admonition, in order to highlight the role of prayer, the chant, and the ceremony. It sees the original or highest manifestation of communication not in the transmission of intelligent information, but in the constructance and maintenance of an ordered, meaningful cultural world that can serve as a controlling container for human action. If one examines a newspaper under a transmission view of communication, one sees the medium as an instrument for disseminating news and knowledge, in larger and larger packages over greater distances. Questions arise as to the effects of this on the audience. News as a lightening or obscuring reality, as changing or hardening attitudes, as breeding credibility or doubt. A ritual view of communication will focus on a different range of problems in examining the newspaper. It will, for example, view reading a newspaper less as sending or gaining information and more as attending a mass, a situation in which nothing new is learned, but in which a particular view of the world is portrayed and confirmed. News reading and writing is a ritual act, and therefore, moreover, a dramatic one. What is arrayed before the reader is not pure information, but a portrayal of the contending forces in the world. Moreover, as readers make their way through the paper, they engage a continual shift of roles or of dramatic focus. Under a ritual view, then, news is not information but drama. It does not describe the world, but portrays an area of dramatic focus and attention. It exists only solely in historical time. It invites our participation on the basis of our assuming, often vicariously, social roles within it. Subsuming the transmission view within the ritual. Neither of these counterposed views of communication necessarily defines what the other affirms. Ritual view does not exclude the process of information transmission or attitude change. It merely contends that one cannot understand these processes aright, except insofar as they are cast within an essentially ritualistic view of communication and social order. But from such ideas one can draw a definition of communication of disarming simplicity, yet, I think, of some intellectual power and scope. Communication is a symbolic process whereby reality is produced, maintained, and prepared and transformed. To study communication is to examine the actual social progress wherein significant symbolic forms are created, apprehended, and used. Our attempts to construct, maintain, repair, and transform reality are publicly observable activities that occur in historical time. We create, express, and convey our knowledge of and attitudes. Our knowledge of reality and attitudes towards reality through the construction of a variety of symbol systems: art, science, journalism, religion, common sense, mythology. How do we know this? What are the differences between these forms? What are the historical and comparative variations in them? How do changes in communication technology influence what we can concretely create and apprehend? How do groups in society struggle over the definition of what is real? These are some of the questions, rather too simply put, that communication studies must answer. Where does each of these go? This is from the old web almost. Yeah, this looks like it was really from like the earlier internet, back before it got bogged down by ads galore. Oh, sounds like something I want to investigate. It's not fun to have all these links, but it looks pretty solid. I'll check it out another time.